I'm going to be a grandma soon. I'm eagerly looking forward to being there for my daughter Alana's first childbirth, but it's a strange mix of excitement and anxiety. Next week, I had plans to take a short trip. There's still 2 weeks until the due date. But I was debating whether I should go, just in case something happens. Contrary to my anxiety, my husband Lawrence readily agreed. The day after I arrived back home by plane, I saw a photo on Alana's social media. In the picture, Alana was holding her newborn baby. Next to her stood Lawrence, forming a happy 3-generation family photo. What's this? The due date was supposed to be 2 weeks from now. Did it come early? And neither Lawrence nor Alana had contacted me. Was the due date I was told a lie? Once again, I was left out. As if to add insult to injury, my smartphone rang. It was Lawrence. Hey! What are you doing? Helping after childbirth is the mother's job. I immediately heard his angry voice. Labor started. The baby was born. The first words to me, left out of this important moment, were, "What are you doing? Hurry back." Of course, I want to help Alana and see my grandchild. But how long do I plan to continue this life with Lawrence? Maybe I've reached my limit. Ah, that's right. Understood. The real mother is on her way. What? I hung up without answering and stood up. Where is the place I feel most at ease? As I was hanging the laundry, I saw a cat yawning comfortably on the stone wall, and I thought about it. Lately, it feels like I've been spending more time looking out the window as a form of escapism from these unresolved feelings. I used to have the most fun just being with friends. Just seeing everyone's faces made me feel at ease. I nostalgically remembered my high school days, long ago. I am Kristen. I don't have a place where I can truly relax. Even at home, my mind is constantly occupied with doing all the housework perfectly, leaving no time to rest. Excuse me. Can I go buy some sauce and eggs? Sure. What time and which store are you planning to go? Oh, around 2 p.m. to that supermarket. Even though we've been living together for so long, I still get nervous having conversations because I have to be overly mindful. That's because my husband Lawrence can be quite a controlling husband. It's expected to prepare breakfast before waking him up, to have dinner and a shower ready before he comes home. Asking for permission to go shopping is a norm in our household. If I went out without asking, not only would he be in a bad mood, but who knows what would happen. I don't have the courage to go out without asking, so I just do the daily chores without upsetting Lawrence. And ending each day without knowing what peace feels like has become my daily routine. Having lived isolated from the outside world for so long, now in my late middle age, the thought of divorce scares me. When I first married Lawrence, I loved cooking his favorite meals and eagerly awaited his return. I felt happy taking care of him, from offering words of appreciation to preparing his pajamas and work clothes. I felt like loving him by being attentive and devoted. I made something light for you today. My stomach was feeling heavy. Thank you. Lawrence would always thank me for everything I did, making me feel even more fulfilled. But those happy times didn't last very long. Even though we lived our lives the same way as always, Lawrence became less and less appreciative of what I did. His gaze turned critical, and he no longer tolerated even the smallest mistakes. My life changed dramatically from that day. It was right after I finished preparing dinner when I realized I had forgotten to buy toilet paper. Lawrence wasn't due back yet, and since the store was close by, I decided to run out quickly to get it. I managed to get the shopping done and hurried back home. Huh? The door is unlocked. Panicking, I rushed inside to find that Lawrence had come home earlier than expected. "Hey, where have you been? You're home early today. Answer me. Where were you and what were you doing?" "I went to the store to buy some toilet paper because we ran out." Lawrence was in an unusually bad mood. It was still early in the evening, a time when even teenagers wouldn't be expected to be home yet, but he couldn't tolerate that I wasn't there. I regretted not letting him know to avoid worrying him. "I'm sorry. I should have called to let you know. Leaving the house without telling me is unacceptable. From now on, no unnecessary outings. You must get my permission for everything, even shopping." I couldn't tell if he said this in a fit of anger or if he truly meant it. But I didn't want to upset him further, so I apologized and tried to calm the situation. However, from that day, the control over my life became much stricter. Before, I would combine necessary shopping with personal errands, but even that was now deemed unnecessary. Going out for coffee with friends was out of the question. I felt like a bird trapped in a cage, with Lawrence controlling all aspects of my freedom. Since everything was monitored, I often wondered why I had to endure such treatment. Naturally, my love for Lawrence began to fade. Despite this, I had something in my life that I was fully committed to. That was raising my only daughter, Alana. Separated from the outside world and living a constrained life, Alana was my everything. Mom. I remember how overjoyed I was when she first called me. As she started school, I spent my time attending parent-teacher meetings, school events, and driving her to and from extracurricular activities. Lawrence showed no interest in Alana's school activities or extracurriculars and didn't help at all, so I handled everything. Despite living a life so centered around Alana, she only listened to what Lawrence said. Teenage girls can be difficult to handle. Even so, her distant attitude broke my heart. Alana's attitude didn't change as she entered high school. "Alana, stop by my place after school tomorrow." "Okay, got it." As she settled into high school life, Lawrence began calling Alana to his workplace more frequently. Lawrence ran a construction business passed down through generations. Being the third generation, Lawrence saw Alana as the only potential successor. He probably intended for Alana to take over the business one day. I've never seen Alana rebel against her father. I found myself envious of their close relationship. I thought Alana would work well with Lawrence. But I wondered if Alana had other aspirations or dreams she wanted to pursue. Since she didn't talk to me much, I couldn't ask her about school or her future plans, even though I was curious. As she approached 11th grade, the time to finalize her future path drew near. Lawrence was calling Alana to his workplace more frequently than before. This week, she had already gone 3 days in a row. After dinner, Lawrence headed for a shower, and with Alana still in the living room, now was my chance. "Hey, Alana. It's almost time for your career counseling, right? How are you thinking about your future? Today, I really want to talk to Alana about her future plans. I want to ask if she has a specific career in mind." Contrary to my intentions, I carefully chose these words, hoping they would make it easier for Alana to answer without feeling uncomfortable. After a short pause, Alana finally responded. "I think I'll work at Dad's company." Without making eye contact, Alana said this. I wanted to continue the conversation, but I couldn't see her expression, so I didn't have the courage to say anything more, and the conversation ended there. Just then, Lawrence came out of the shower and crossed paths with Alana. "Alana, you can come by tomorrow too, right? I have something after school tomorrow." "Do you think you can get a job with that attitude?" "I'll come by a little late, but I'll be there." I thought he was asking too much of her, but it wasn't my place to say anything. I felt sorry for Alana, but I couldn't say anything since I was only listening from a distance. A few days later, when I passed by Alana doing her homework in the living room, I saw a career sheet indicating she would take over Dad's company. Alana seemed to feel some pressure from her father and had no choice but to make up her mind. I couldn't help but think that if I had more influence, Alana might have pursued a career she loved. But if Alana genuinely wanted to take over the company, I wanted to support her. And so, after graduating high school, Alana joined Lawrence's company. At first, she seemed exhausted from the unfamiliar environment, but she gradually got used to it. Since we didn't talk about work at home, I couldn't tell how she was doing. All I could do was put my heart into preparing lunch and dinner to give Alana some strength. That's all I could do for her. A few years after starting her job, Alana apparently got a boyfriend at work. Lawrence seemed to like him a lot. "Tomorrow, my boyfriend is coming for dinner." "Really? Does he have any food preferences?" "I don't think so." "Okay, I'll prepare something by tomorrow then." Her curt response still made me happy because we could have a normal conversation. And even more so, I was thrilled that Alana was bringing her boyfriend home. I felt excited to put extra effort into tomorrow's dinner. Before bed, I did a little prep work and fell asleep with excitement. The next day, Lawrence, Alana, and her boyfriend came home together. Alana's boyfriend seemed very serious and friendly. Lawrence was happy to have his subordinate at our house and enthusiastically talked about work, drinking more than usual. I just watched them talk about work with a friendly smile. Alana's boyfriend tried to talk to me several times, but Lawrence's conversation never stopped, so he left without us having a proper conversation. He seemed like a really nice person. I said to Alana, who was helping with the cleanup, but she didn't seem to hear me over the sound of washing dishes. As time passed, Alana and her boyfriend decided to get married. With the marriage, Alana moved out, and it was just Lawrence and me again. Even with just the two of us, things were the same as always, with Lawrence managing everything, and our days were the same as before. The only change was that I had one less person to prepare lunch and dinner for. "Today, we're having a meeting with Alana and her fiancé, so prepare dinner." "Understood." Alana and her fiancé were getting married in 2 months. They were coming over tonight to discuss and plan the wedding. While thinking about the dinner menu, I smiled as I imagined Alana in her wedding dress. She must look so beautiful as a bride. I wonder what kind of wedding it will be. I'm really looking forward to it. I prepared for their visit while thinking about this. "I'm home." Seeing Alana for the first time in a while, I was relieved to see she seemed as lively as ever. "Let's talk after we eat for now." After saying that, Lawrence, Alana, and my husband started talking after dinner. I quickly finished cleaning up, intending to join the conversation, but it progressed so quickly that I couldn't find an opening to join in. I felt like I was being left out. Sitting beside them, I just listened in bewilderment to the conversation I couldn't follow. In the end, I was neither consulted nor involved in any discussions until the day of the wedding. But I told myself that just being able to attend the wedding and see my daughter in her dress was enough, and I headed to the venue. The ceremony began, and Alana appeared in her wedding dress. Wrapped in a pure white dress, Alana looked incredibly beautiful, beyond words. Lawrence, sitting next to me, was also gazing at Alana with a look of satisfaction. Alana, whom I had raised like my own daughter, was finally leaving the nest to start her own family. I felt a mix of happiness and sadness, a strange feeling. To think that little Alana had grown up so beautifully and was showing us her stunning dress. I was so moved I couldn't let go of my handkerchief. A few years after the emotional ceremony, Alana decided to move nearby and set up a new home. And it seems Alana's baby is due in the fall. Really? We're finally going to have a grandchild. Hearing the double good news from Lawrence about Alana moving nearby and having a baby made me ecstatic. In the midst of my joy, I felt a tinge of sadness that Alana hadn't told me directly. But that didn't matter compared to how happy I was. Even Lawrence, who usually doesn't show much emotion, seemed happy. Although Alana still acted distant towards me, just knowing she would be living nearby gave me peace of mind. No matter how distant she might act, or even if she didn't like me, she was still my precious daughter. I wanted to support her and help her whenever she needed it. That's how I felt as a mother. As the heat of summer continued, Alana and her family finished moving. Although they started living nearby, they didn't visit often, so it didn't quite feel like they were close. Around that time, I received a letter addressed to me in the mail. I recognized the sender's name but couldn't clearly remember who it was. I decided to open the letter. It was an invitation to a high school reunion. The sender was a high school classmate. No wonder the name looked familiar. A reunion, huh? I wonder how everyone is doing. I'd love to see them again. I reminisced about my high school days while looking at the letter. The reunion would be held locally after a long time. My hometown is a flight away, not exactly close. It would take a few days to go and come back, so a day trip wasn't feasible. The reunion date was 2 weeks before Alana's due date. I'd have to leave home for a few days, and Alana's due date was approaching. I wanted to attend the reunion, but I hesitated. And even if it was for a reunion, I wasn't sure if Lawrence would allow me to go out. It took a lot of courage for me to bring it up with Lawrence. I thought he would say no, but I decided to mention the reunion. Hoping he wouldn't get upset, I decided to talk to him during dinner. "Honey, I need to talk to you." The moment I said that, I met Lawrence's gaze and felt nervous. I felt a cold sweat coming on. Pretending not to be agitated, I continued. "There seems to be a high school reunion in October. But I would be away for a few days, and Alana's due date is close." I couldn't say I wanted to go outright, so I mumbled. Lawrence's reaction was unexpected. "That's fine. Of course, you should go." He said it in an unusually calm voice. I was surprised by Lawrence's response, thinking he would surely object. "Really? Is it okay? But what about Alana?" "Don't worry about the details. Just go." He readily agreed to me going to the reunion. I was delighted to see a glimpse of the gentle Lawrence from the past. I couldn't wait for that day to come. Then, the day before the reunion, Lawrence drove me to the station. "Take your time and relax." I was a little taken aback by Lawrence's unexpected words. But I felt a surge of excitement at the thought of being free for the first time in a long while. With Lawrence's usual expressionless face behind me, I headed towards the boarding gate. The view from the plane is one of my favorite sights. As I watched the scenery flow by and reminisced, I suddenly arrived at my hometown. The next day, on the way to the reunion, I saw some kids from my old school, which made me feel nostalgic. "Hey, long time no see. Do you remember me?" In the middle of the reunion, a woman approached me. "Oh, long time no see. Of course, I remember you. How have you been?" Her name was Brianna, Lawrence's ex-wife. Brianna was a classmate in high school, and Lawrence was an upperclassman at the same school. I had feelings for Lawrence since I was in high school. But eventually, Lawrence started dating Brianna. I continued to secretly like Lawrence even while they were dating. When I heard they got married, I accepted it with a sense of resignation but was also shocked. Still, I couldn't give up my feelings for Lawrence. Years later, while visiting my hometown, I coincidentally ran into Lawrence, who was also visiting. There, I learned that he had divorced Brianna, and we found out we both lived in the same city far from home. We grew close quickly and eventually got married, fulfilling my long-held feelings. More importantly, look at this. Kristen, shouldn't you be with her? Brianna showed me her smartphone screen. On it was a picture of Alana holding a newborn baby. Next to them stood Lawrence, all of them looking happy together. What? When was this photo taken? What's going on? It was posted yesterday. What Brianna showed me was a photo on Alana's social media. The birth had happened earlier than expected, and I started to panic inside. From the photo, Alana looked healthy. I was relieved to see that she had given birth without any problems. Thinking I must have gotten a notification about the birth, I checked my smartphone. There's no message. Neither Lawrence nor Alana had contacted me at all. At that moment, a thought crossed my mind. Could it be that the reason Lawrence had so readily let me attend the reunion was because he didn't want me to be present for Alana's birth? Did he deliberately send me away when he knew it would coincide with her due date? Allowing me to go to the reunion was so out of character for Lawrence, who usually monitored my activities so strictly. I should have suspected something was amiss. I called Lawrence. Alana gave birth, I heard. Why didn't you tell me? If you had informed me as soon as she went into labor, I would have rushed back immediately. Lawrence responded calmly. Well, you're not blood related, so it doesn't concern you, does it? I was at a loss for words, shocked that he would bring up blood relations. We had lived together for so many years, become like a real family, and yet I was still considered an outsider. But I've been the one taking care of Alana all this time. I've spent more time with her than you have. It doesn't matter. Alana didn't want you there either. Hearing that Alana didn't want me there was a blow, and I hung up the phone feeling deeply hurt. Yes, Alana's biological mother was Brianna, not me, the one standing right in front of me. But since the day I married Lawrence, I had tried to be a mother to Alana, giving her all the love I could muster. And until she reached her teenage years, I thought we had been as close as a real mother and daughter. It pained me deeply to realize that all my efforts and love had not reached her. Let's talk once the reunion is over. With that, I left the reunion with Brianna. Sitting on a park bench, I told Brianna about Alana not wanting me to be there. It's good for a father and daughter to be close, but she became distant with me around middle school. I thought it was just a phase, but even as an adult, she hasn't changed. I could never understand why, and I've never talked about it with anyone. It felt good to finally express my feelings about Alana. Do you know why I divorced Lawrence? I work as a lawyer, and I continued working even after Alana was born. Brianna began to share her story from when Alana was born. When Alana started preschool, my career was taking off, and I was away from home a lot. At that time, I was earning more than Lawrence. But he didn't like it. Lawrence seemed to feel inferior as Brianna's career surpassed his own. He claimed my work was affecting Alana's upbringing and tried to make me quit. But I didn't want to give up my job, so I brought up the idea of divorce. I planned to raise Alana on my own. However, Lawrence had no intention of giving Brianna custody. Lawrence apparently used his authority and influence to manipulate Alana into choosing him. Young Alana, not understanding she was being manipulated, chose to live with her father instead of her mother. When Alana told me, "Mom doesn't love me. I'm happier with Dad," it was a severe shock. Even if it wasn't her true feelings, a child's words can cut deeply. For a mother who gave birth to and loves her child, it must have been unimaginably painful. Believing Alana's words, Brianna decided to divorce and give up custody. But she admitted she had always regretted it.
What? That happened? I had no idea. That's terrible.
I couldn't hide my shock at learning how Lawrence had manipulated young Alana against Brianna, leading to their divorce. But when I heard he remarried you, I felt a bit relieved. You're kind and I knew you could handle it. I thought my role was done. Alana is grown up now, and seeing you now made me want to reach out. Brianna and I shared our pasts that were hard to talk about, and it eased some of my worries. Suddenly, my phone rang loudly. It's from Lawrence. I wanted to talk more with Brianna, so I decided not to answer. Brianna, can I tell you something? I told her that Lawrence wouldn't allow unnecessary outings, that I had to get his permission for shopping locations, times, and contents, and that I couldn't argue back.
What? That's unbelievable. That's completely abusive. You could definitely sue him.
Brianna was shocked at how much more extreme Lawrence's behavior was compared to when she was married. She was very indignant, as if it were her own situation, and couldn't hold back her feelings.
Alana's attitude towards you is definitely his fault. Let's go talk to him together. I can't stand that he's treating you like this.
Just as she stood up, my phone rang again. It was Lawrence again. I answered, and he immediately started speaking.
Hey! What are you doing? Helping after childbirth is the mother's job. When are you coming back?
He was trying to push the motherly duties on me, even though he said I wasn't real family earlier. He had told me to take my time and relax, yet now he was being selfish again, and I couldn't help but sigh. I always knew he was overbearing and selfish, but at this point, there were no words left.
Understood. The real mother is on her way. What? What are you talking about? Just come back and take care of things.
I hung up without responding. On the way home, Brianna and I continued talking.
Do you plan to keep living like this? If you decide to divorce, I'll fully support you. It's my specialty. Leave it to me. I've thought about divorce a few times, but at this age, and being isolated for so long, I lacked the courage. But with you around, I feel stronger. I'm not thinking about divorce right now, but if it comes to that, will you help me? Of course. But for now, let me give him a piece of my mind.
Talking like that, we arrived home. Lawrence, expecting only me, looked a bit surprised when Brianna appeared behind me.
Oh, when you said the real mother, you meant Brianna. After abandoning your kid, what do you want now?
Lawrence spoke arrogantly towards Brianna.
You really need to fix your attitude and personality. Let me tell you something.
Huh? With a face full of anger, Brianna criticized Lawrence.
Why are you trying to ruin Kristen and Alana's relationship? You're destroying what Kristen has built. Do you enjoy controlling Alana? Do you think she'll respect you for this? What blood ties? You're far more unfit as a father.
It wasn't just one or two words, it was much more.
But
Lawrence tried to make excuses, but Brianna didn't give him the chance.
And you may not realize it, but you manipulated Alana to gain custody, didn't you? And now you're forcibly restricting Kristen's life. That's called confinement. But that's... You know, I can always demand compensation through divorce court for everything you've done so far. I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. Just spare me from compensation through divorce court. I've wronged Brianna, Kristen, and Alana. I'm truly sorry. I'm begging you.
Lawrence, overwhelmed by Brianna's words, uncharacteristically admitted his faults and apologized sincerely. As I listened to Brianna's words and watched Lawrence apologize sincerely, I could only nod in agreement. Lawrence, in his repentant state, seemed somewhat smaller. "Brianna, thank you for this. I feel a bit relieved." I thanked Brianna, exchanged contact information, and we parted ways. The next day, I went to visit Alana alone.
"Alana, congratulations on the baby. Can I come in?"
"Mom, you came." "Yes, come in. Look at this." On the screen of the smartphone Alana showed me. "I'm sorry for everything. Please forgive me," it said. It seemed that Lawrence had genuinely reflected on the events of the previous day and had also apologized to Alana. I briefly explained the events of the previous day, being careful not to touch her postnatal body. "So that's why he apologized. Dad had always told me not to talk to Mom or get close to her, and if I didn't listen to him, he'd get really mad at me in secret. I wanted to talk to you more like before, but I was too scared to go against him. I'm sorry for treating you badly all this time. I'm sorry too for not noticing and helping you. I thought you hated me." Alana and I held hands, tears welling up as we talked, bridging the emotional distance that had grown between us. "I really wanted you to be there when the baby was born, but I couldn't tell Dad, and I felt so lonely. But thank you for coming." With that, Alana handed me the baby. So small, yet so warm and with a certain weight to it. I felt the love and warmth as I cried. After Alana is discharged, I plan to stay with her family for a while to help with postnatal care. During that time, I will carefully reconsider my relationship with Lawrence. I can't easily forgive Lawrence for what he has done to me, Brianna, and Alana, and I still feel anger. However, I also want to accept the weak part of Lawrence that tries to control others because he lacks confidence in himself. When I told Brianna this, "I'm always ready to file a lawsuit, you know," she said enthusiastically. I couldn't help but laugh at her determination. Then, sometime later, at Alana's request, I arranged a meeting for Brianna and Alana to reunite. "Alana, I'm sorry for making you feel lonely. I can't ask for forgiveness, but please know that you are important to me."
"Mom, back then, I really did like you."
The reunion after all those years was a bit awkward, but there was a nostalgic air about it. That night, Alana whispered softly, "I'm lucky to have two moms who care about me. Alana and I have a relationship as genuine as any biological parent and child. Even without a blood connection, I never imagined we could build such a happy family. Living with Alana and my grandchild now, I feel very happy." Looking at my watch, it was past 8 o'clock at night. My daughter Linda and husband Tom wouldn't prepare dinner themselves, so they must be waiting for my return. As I was about to enter the living room, I heard Linda laughing loudly, saying, "Nowadays, fixing clothes and reselling them seems so poor." Were they watching TV or something? Never did I think they were talking about me until I heard Tom's voice that drained the blood from my face. "Mary too. She's got her quirks, kind of misunderstanding things, you know?" It seemed they were talking about me and my friend Mary. Frozen in place, I was forced to listen to a conversation I didn't want to hear. Their talk was nothing but derogatory towards me and Mary, making me feel dizzy. Slumped on the spot, my beloved dog Max came to comfort me. Their conversation continued, even mentioning throwing away Max, a mixed breed, along with my mother's sewing machine, which is a keepsake to me. Suddenly, I stood up. Without saying anything, I took Max, and before I knew it, I had fled the house. Where was I going? Even I didn't know, as Max whimpered vulnerably. Could I just return home as if nothing happened? No, that was impossible. I understood that those two were mocking us. I didn't want to return to a home where such people waited. I didn't want to feel that miserable. From that day, I never returned to that house. There are a few things that are precious to me. One of them, my mother's treadle sewing machine, is my most treasured possession. My mother used this sewing machine to make many clothes for me. Like my mother, I wanted to make clothes for my daughter too. Linda used to like the clothes I made for her, but that's a story of the past. Now that she's in high school, she hardly wears the clothes I tailor. In a cafe one afternoon, I was venting to my friend Mary.
Back then, she used to say she loved Mom's homemade clothes. Now she says looking at me, using the sewing machine makes me look like a grandma.
Now.
You had your own moments too.
Mary and I have been friends since high school. Sometimes she brings up things I don't even remember.
Really?
I feigned ignorance and took a sip of my iced coffee. Laughing, Mary meticulously checked the clothes I had mended. After graduating from high school's fashion department, Mary and I went on to the same college for fashion. Though we're on different paths now, our friendship hasn't changed.
As expected of Jane. Perfect as always.
I felt relieved hearing that from Mary. My repaired clothes would be displayed in Mary's select shop. After college, Mary got a job at a major apparel company, where she learned the ropes of sales and management before going independent.
Linda's already in high school, and I wish she would work with me.
After delivering the clothes, now it was Mary's turn to grumble.
I tell you every time, it's just a hobby for me. I'm always worried if the repairs I do are good enough for your requests.
Mary responded,
Yeah.
Got it, with a bored face. After that, as usual, we caught up on each other's lives and chatted about various things before parting ways. Walking home alone, I reminisced about the past. High school, college days. Those days of striving and competing every day on assignments. After graduation, I got a job at a textile company and gradually stopped making clothes. Losing my father early on and living with my mother and daughter, my mother passed away before I graduated from college. I was fully occupied with the unfamiliar environment and my job. When Linda was born after marrying a colleague from the same company, I realized the importance of family anew. Like my mother did for me, I began making clothes for Linda again, using my mother's treadle sewing machine. She used to be so obedient and cute. Arriving home, I sighed as I saw Linda lounging on the sofa watching TV.
Jane, you used to say the same thing.
I remembered what Mary said during the day. I wonder if I was such a lazy daughter in my mother's eyes. If so, my mother's love was truly great, and I am nowhere close to her.
Oh, you're back?
Linda finally noticed my return but didn't bother to move from her spot. I surely wasn't as lazy a daughter as this. Reassuring myself, I decided to start preparing dinner.
I'm home.
Tom got home after 10 p.m. Sitting next to Linda on the living room couch, he loosened his tie.
Welcome back,
Linda said, fiddling with her smartphone. While I was preparing the meal, the two of them were happily chatting as they watched TV. Tom and Linda get along well, but there is no blood relation between Tom and Linda. Linda lost her father in an accident when she was just 2 years old. After losing my previous husband, I had been getting sewing jobs through Mary's introduction, and that's how I met Tom. Linda, being a friendly child, quickly grew fond of Tom, and it didn't take long for us to remarry. Although I was afraid of losing my loved ones again, being with Tom, who is positive and resilient, eventually made me feel at ease. His cheerful and lively personality made me feel like he wouldn't die over trivial matters. And indeed, my happiness continues to this day. Isn't the outfit this person is wearing cute? Watching a celebrity on TV, Linda asked Tom.
This is said to be trending this year. We've got them in stock at my store too.
Tom manages a store known for affordable fashion. Really? Get one for me before they sell out. The casual exchange between Tom and Linda was irritating me. It's fine that Tom and Linda like brand new, trendy clothes, but I can't understand why they dispose of them so quickly every season. Clothes that are still wearable are cast aside for new ones, even though they were liked and bought. I wear my favorite clothes for years, mending or modifying them myself if they get a bit old or slightly torn. I know Tom and Linda think my way of handling clothes is old-fashioned, so I try not to comment on how they treat theirs, but…
Linda, you really know about fashion.
Tom is indulgent with Linda, and at this rate, he'll buy her lots of clothes again.
Tom, don't spoil Linda too much. Linda, why not get a part-time job and buy them yourself?
When I told the excited pair, the conversation abruptly stopped. It's fine.
Parents are supposed to buy their children clothes, right?
Yeah.
Girls, Linda's age, want to dress up. Try to understand that.
Suddenly, it was as if I was the villain, being scolded by both of them, and I was at a loss for words. Anything more I'd say wouldn't reach their ears.
Just keep it moderate, please.
Leaving those words behind, I moved away from the living room, and their cheerful voices echoed behind me again. I felt incredibly empty. However, seeing my dog Max curled up and asleep in the bedroom soothed me.
Max, you're on my side, right?
I muttered, but Max only tilted his head. With a renewed sense of emptiness, I fell asleep next to Max. One day, I visited Mary's office. It was to check the condition of the vintage clothes Mary had bought abroad after I had finished repairing them. Mary, being my friend, doesn't compromise at all when inspecting the clothes I've mended. Knowing this, I prepare myself for delivery. Sometimes, when there are few items, we chat over coffee, but this time there were many, so I came to the office. Boxes were piled up everywhere. The first time I came, I mistook it for a warehouse. At the back was Mary's desk, and in front of it, a table and chairs for visitors, all picked out by Mary from antique shops. Her taste, unchanged since our student days, has always been something I admired. This one and this one are okay. I want a bit more alteration on this skirt. After finishing the thorough check, I sighed in relief.
Something wrong?
Mary's sharp gaze fixed on me.
What? No, I'm just relieved. I'll fix it right away and get back to you.
I quickly packed the clothes for resubmission to escape Mary's scrutiny. This batch didn't seem very you. Mary took an envelope from her desk and handed it to me. The payment for the clothes I had mended.
I can't take it. It took too long, and I didn't meet your expectations.
I refused, but Mary forced the envelope into my hand.
I think your skills haven't dropped at all.
This time, she looked into my eyes with sparkling ones.
Far from declining, you're at a professional level. That's why I've made sure to include the appropriate fee for your skills.
Mary's eyes shine when she's talking about work. And I know it's not just because I'm her friend that she acknowledges my skill and gives me a fair reward.
That's right. I have something I want you to see, Jane.
As I was about to leave, Mary, pretending not to hear, took something out of a cardboard box. A hand-carved horse, no, perhaps a donkey. This small figurine, small enough to fit in the palm of my hand, was something sold to tourists at an outdoor market in Africa. I think you have a better sense for trinkets than I do. What do you think about this? I give my honest opinion. And so, I rated each piece of trinketry that she kept bringing out one after the other. I enjoy these moments. Before I know it, time always flies by. Glancing outside the window, I realized it had long since become dark. Mary. Sorry, I have to go. Mary looked up in surprise at the office clock. Sorry for keeping you so late. But it was really helpful. Thank you. With a wave, I hurried out of Mary's office. Rushing through the office district, I hastened to the station through the night. The glittering streets filled me with longing. And I remembered that I had a dream too. To have many people wear the clothes I made. Even though I went to college for fashion. Watching the scenery float by from the train window. If I had joined an apparel company instead of a textile manufacturer. If I hadn't married. If I hadn't had children. My self-deprecating thoughts led me back to the familiar residential area. And then, I returned to reality. Forgetting the dreams I had been reminiscing about, I hurried home. Checking my watch, it was past 8 o'clock at night. Neither Linda nor Tom would prepare dinner themselves, so they must be waiting for my return. Fortunately, they wouldn't be upset with takeout, so I stopped by the nearby supermarket to pick up something quick. Still, the lack of any message from them bothered me. Usually, I would inform or message them if I were going to be late, but today was neither. Moreover, it should be the first time I haven't prepared dinner and haven't come home until this hour. Soon after, I arrived home. The porch light was on, so they must be home. Perhaps they didn't mind me not returning, and I was the only one concerned about the time. That thought was rather lonely. Opening the front door, there was Max, tied up. He's usually free roaming, maybe they hadn't let him off after a walk. As Max looked up at me with watery eyes, I reached for his leash to set him free, when laughter from the living room reached me. Unable to hold back my irritation, I headed to the living room with Max. After all, Max was brought home by me. Wanting a dog for Linda, we went to a city adoption event where we met. Linda wanted a smaller, cuter dog, so we left that day, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. Unable to forget, I inquired later and found out he was about to be euthanized, so I couldn't stand it and took him in. Max came to us under those circumstances, but Linda and Tom were supposed to have welcomed him as a pet. Yet now, they were having fun inside while Max was left tied up in the cold entrance, which I couldn't forgive. As I was about to enter the living room, I heard Linda laughing loudly. Nowadays, fixing clothes and selling them again seems so poor. Were they watching TV or something? I never thought they were talking about me until I heard Tom's voice, which made my blood run cold. Mary too. She's too stubborn, or rather, there's some kind of misunderstanding. It seemed they were talking about me and Mary. Frozen in place, I was forced to listen to a conversation I didn't want to hear. Me, being swayed by Mary, fulfilling repair requests without much skill. Mary, using me without a shred of sense just because we're friends. Their conversation was nothing but derogatory towards me and Mary, making me feel dizzy. Slumped on the spot, Max came to comfort me. Their conversation continued, mentioning maybe throwing away Max, a mixed breed, along with my treadle sewing machine, a keepsake from my mother. Suddenly, I stood up. Without saying a word, I took Max, and before I knew it, we had left the house. Where were we going? I didn't even know myself. Max whimpered vulnerably. Could we just return home as if nothing had happened? No, that couldn't be possible. It was clear that those two were mocking us. I didn't want to return to a home where such people were waiting. I didn't want to feel that miserable. My feet moved in the opposite direction of home. Eventually, the residential area changed to an office district, and me walking with a dog seemed out of place. But I couldn't turn back now. When I reached the familiar buildings, I took out my smartphone and made a call.
Jane, what's wrong?
Surprised by my call, Mary rushed out of the building. I was just about to leave, but noticing Max sitting next to me, Mary seemed to understand something. Asking me to wait for a moment, she disappeared back into the building. After a while, she appeared with a large cardboard box. "Can you bear with this for a bit, Max?" she said as she packed Max into the box. Max, being smart and seldom barking, stayed quiet. Then, I shared with Mary what had happened back at the house. "So that's what happened." As I spoke, the shock and anger faded, and I began to feel restless, wondering if the two of them were worried about my absence. Ignoring my fidgeting, Mary glanced at Max, curled up in the box, and muttered, "If they were worried, they would have called by now." Unable to fully grasp Mary's words due to my panic.
What should I do? What should I do?
I just wandered around the room, muttering.
Didn't you say you installed a pet camera for Max?
I could hear her this time, but when I looked at Mary, she seemed exasperated. Sighing heavily, she said,
"If you're worried about what they're doing, why don't you check the camera?"
Without looking at me, Mary continued to pet Max. I took out my smartphone to check the pet camera's feed. But my hands trembled, my heart raced, and my mind went blank. Max, who had been enjoying Mary's strokes, quickly ran to my feet.
"If you can't look alone, shall I watch it with you?"
Nodding to Mary's offer, I handed over my smartphone. Mary opened the pet camera app. The living room appeared on the screen. A pizza box was open on the table, left in disarray. Linda and Tom were still laughing joyously on the sofa.
"They don't seem worried about you at all."
I couldn't see it. It was clear they hadn't even noticed that Max and I had left the house. The shock hit me again, but this time, anger started to bubble up within me.
"So, what now? What do you want to do, Jane? Do you still want to go back to that house?"
Mary asked, seemingly enjoying the situation.
"I don't want to go back."
Hearing my decision, Mary smiled, pleased.
"Then leave it to me from here."
I never felt as reassured by Mary as I did then. At the same time, I realized how terrifying she could be as an adversary. Mary skillfully manipulated my smartphone, then showed me a shocking video. It was footage from the pet camera, but it showed Tom in the midst of an affair.
"I never thought we'd find something this easily."
Mary seemed thrilled, like a child who had found a fun new game. Mary had once worked at the same company as Tom. She had heard rumors about him through former colleagues.
"It was just gossip, so I didn't take it seriously and thought it wasn't worth reporting to you."
Her words felt like a blow as I was still reeling, but they helped me come to a resolution.
"I've made up my mind."
As if cheering me on, Mary winked. The next day, I waited for a time when Tom and Linda were out, and moved out my essential belongings. I did receive a message from Linda, but I only told her that I would be staying with Mary for a while. Seeing that it was read without any further response, it seemed she didn't care that I wouldn't be returning. I immediately started looking for a house where Max and I could live and decided to make a fresh start. Mary introduced me to a lawyer she knew, and she seemed oddly cheerful as usual. She always accompanied me when talking to the lawyer, providing valuable information. Hearing Mary's information, I felt my feelings for Tom cooling further. Seducing young part-timers at the store, causing him to be transferred from store to store. Is this why he's still just a manager despite his age? I felt embarrassed for living unquestioningly up to this point. I settled everything with Tom through the lawyer, but Linda was still on my mind. I wondered if she actually wanted to come with me. I wanted to at least see her and talk. So, when I came to pick up the rest of my stuff, and Linda was there, I approached her. "Linda, won't you come with me?" Linda, as usual, lay on the sofa, not even looking at me.
Are you mad because I decided to divorce on my own?
I asked, almost crying, to the silent Linda. Then Linda shrugged her shoulders. Was she crying?
Let's go together then.
I couldn't leave my own daughter behind. I had already made her feel lonely before by marrying Tom, who wasn't her biological father. Surely, being with me would make Linda happier than staying with Tom. As I moved closer to take her hand, Linda finally spoke. Are you delusional? I thought Linda was tearful, but then she started laughing, holding her stomach.
You really didn't know anything, huh?
She spoke with a voice that seemed to pity me. Linda knew about Tom's affairs. In exchange for keeping quiet, Tom gave her money and lots of clothes.
He's already looking for someone to remarry.
Tom had been seeing other women even during our divorce negotiations. That's why everything went so smoothly. Are you okay with this, Linda? I wondered where Linda's true feelings lay. I was worried about her future. But Linda just smiled confidently.
The woman Dad's marrying is young and kind, like a big sister.
She had already met the woman who would become her new mother. They were planning to buy her a small dog and had gone clothes shopping together.
I'm sick of the noisy sewing machine and that dirty mutt.
Linda knew exactly how much those words would hurt me. As I stood there in shock, she dealt the final blow.
I'm graduating soon anyway. As long as I have money, I can live on my own, so just send financial support.
How could Linda be so optimistic without even having decided on her future career path?
Where did I go wrong? I'll give up custody to Tom. If you want money, ask him.
I coldly relinquished my motherly love. Linda didn't show any sign of being hurt by my words. And so, I never returned to that house again. Discovering a cold side of myself I never knew existed. Though I'm sure I love Linda, why didn't I insist on taking her with me? That's my only regret. 5 years have passed since then. Tom was fired from his job, and he and Linda are living modestly together. During the divorce, they signed a pledge never to involve me again, so I'm currently unharmed. Linda, after graduating, has been supporting Tom by hopping from job to job. If Linda ever reached out, I'd certainly extend my hand, but that will never happen.
Jane, you're pausing again.
Mary brought me back to reality. Since then, I've been officially working for Mary. My taking over the administrative work has made Mary's business even more agile, and her company has grown. Now we've moved to a larger property with space for my workshop and a place for Max to relax.
I don't have kids, so I might not get it, but you're thinking of taking Linda back, aren't you?
Mary asked while making coffee, always seeing right through me. I had indeed asked a lawyer to regain custody of Linda before. However, after hearing the voice on the voice recorder when the lawyer went to talk to Linda, I hesitated.
If you get rid of that sewing machine and the mutt, I'm okay with it.
That's when I realized I couldn't give up the sewing machine and Max for Linda.
I abandoned my daughter.
For my own dreams. For my own beliefs. Mary didn't say anything, just offered me a freshly made coffee.
Thank you.
We drank our coffee and then got back to work. Hoping that someday Linda will understand the value of these remade clothes. I continue to press on with the sewing machine.
Come on, swim faster or you'll drown.
From way above me, I could hear the laughter of my husband who had pushed me into the river. I had broken both my legs a month ago. There was no way I could swim. As I desperately struggled to keep from sinking in the cold water, my husband said something. Hearing that, all the patience I had been holding on to felt foolish. My name is Isabella. I'm a 26-year-old office worker. I have a husband, Joe, who is 34 and also an office worker. Though we're a few years apart, his vast life experience has been a support to me in many ways. Joe and I met at work, where he was my boss. Initially, Joe made the first move, but I was drawn to him for his competence and leadership in various situations. Our relationship smoothly progressed to marriage. Working for a company with branches nationwide, I transferred to a different branch after getting married, feeling nervous yet fulfilled in my new environment. As a dual-income couple, we shared household chores. This company is ideal for me, eager to learn everything I can here, making studying indispensable even amidst a busy schedule. Joe also worked late, which motivated me to do my best. Being in the same company, we could easily understand what the other was working on and share daily events, making conversations with Joe very enjoyable. Initially, things were going well, but at some point, when I consulted Joe about work as usual. "So you've gotten to handle such tasks now?" "Well, do your best," he responded somewhat coldly. The Joe I knew before would listen until I was satisfied and think of solutions together. I felt a bit lonely, but wondered if I had been a burden. Joe was busy, and I was no longer a newcomer. Telling myself that I should be able to solve things on my own by now, I consulted my new boss when in real trouble and tried not to discuss work at home. Then, on payday, "How much did you earn this month?" Joe asked for the first time. We had agreed to contribute a fixed amount from our salaries for living expenses and bills without knowing each other's exact incomes. It was unusual for Joe to ask such a question, but seeing no reason to hide it, I showed him my payslip. Then Joe, shocked, said,
"All this without overtime? Don't joke with me. When did you start earning so much?"
Far from being happy about the increased household income, Joe started treating me with a hostile attitude from that day on. Looking back, I remember hearing that Joe had an unusually high pride and only liked being around people who could boost his self-esteem.
"It's because I've been sharing the housework that you can earn like this. I want to get promoted too, but I've been holding back."
Joe said that and instructed me to take over all the household chores.
"A wife should play a supporting role to her husband and be modest,"
he said abusively. Shocked, but verbally compliant. "Understood. Please focus on your work," I said, while internally taking it as a challenge to manage all the housework and still excel at my job. However, seeing me juggle work and all the household chores, Joe would say things like,
"I wish you'd just break down already,"
or,
"Can't you clean more thoroughly? I hate it when the room doesn't look like a showroom."
I tried to brush it off, but it was undeniably stressful. Perhaps it was wrong to keep thinking about divorce every day, whether at home or work. One day on my way to work, I missed a step on the station stairs and tumbled down a long way. I don't remember falling, but it must have been a bad fall because I ended up breaking both legs. Fortunately, no one else was involved in the accident during the morning rush, but I had to be hospitalized for a while. When Joe visited the hospital, he seemed annoyed and laughed.
"Lately, you've been too proud of your work success. This is your punishment,"
and said,
"Your fractures are nothing serious, so come back home soon,"
and left. After that, Joe did visit daily but only to angrily say,
"The house is dirty, come back soon,"
without a word of concern for me. I explained the situation to my workplace and started working from the hospital. When Joe tried to take away the laptop, saying,
"You're really greedy for money. I told you not to earn more than me,"
I quickly responded,
"I've already informed my boss, and I have work scheduled today. If you don't give it back, I'll have to call and say you took it,"
which made him return it with a click of his tongue, perhaps fearing it would become widely known since we work at the same company. Despite expressing how much he disliked me, Joe continued to visit my hospital room daily after work to complain. Upon finally returning home after my hospital stay, the room was extremely dirty.
"I've left your work for you. You love work and housework, so you must be happy,"
Joe said, but I was still in a wheelchair, unable to walk. Trying to clean what I could reach, like the desk.
"Wait, you still can't stand and work? Taking too long to heal. Isn't it because you're always sitting in that wheelchair?"
He criticized. I wanted to divorce him right there and then, but I couldn't move properly until my legs healed. I couldn't tell the hospital, where I had planned to have Joe take care of me post-divorce, that I wanted to be readmitted, so I endured until I fully recovered, thinking it was just a matter of patience. I told myself that overcoming this would make me stronger, and I'd divorce Joe, living each day without consulting anyone. One day, Joe's attitude changed completely.
"How about we go see a movie? There's something I want to see,"
he suggested. Though I felt a bit happy, the change was so drastic that it felt odd, so I replied,
"It's unusual for you to suggest that. I still have chores to do, so feel free to go by yourself."
But Joe said,
"Actually, my boss found out about my behavior and your situation and gave me an earful. I've been a burden till now, so I want us to go together. We haven't been out recently, and I want Isabella to take a break as a token of my gratitude."
Then he asked,
"What else needs to be done?"
and took care of everything. It had been a while since we went out together. Though I was suspicious, Joe tends to change his attitude quickly if someone in a position of authority speaks to him. If his boss had spoken to him, maybe he truly wanted to change. With that thought, I felt slightly happy, and given how tense I'd been every day, I decided to indulge in the break and agreed to go out. He helped me into the car, and we started our drive. The cinema was relatively close, so I didn't think it would be too much of a burden for him to drive, but we kept moving away from the direction of the cinema I knew. Curiously, I asked,
"Isn't the cinema in that direction?"
Joe replied with a smile.
"The local cinema wouldn't feel special, right? I thought we'd go to a bigger one today."
Feeling reassured, I let Joe take the lead and soon fell asleep in the car, tired from the daily grind.
"We're here."
Joe's voice woke me up, and we were at a deserted river, with no cinema in sight. Confused, I asked,
"What's going on?"
Joe said,
"The weather's nice. How about we take a commemorative photo?"
and grabbed my arm tightly, trying to pull me out of the car. Suddenly frightened, I resisted, but with my legs being weak and the strength of a man being overwhelming, I was forcibly dragged out. Without being put back in my wheelchair, the pain of dragging my legs made me groan. He dragged me near a bridge, gripping my legs as if to lift me, and I felt a fear like never before.
"Stop!"
I involuntarily screamed, but with no one around to help, I felt nothing but despair at the thought of being thrown off. Then Joe, checking to make sure no one was around and annoyed, said,
"Damn it! Don't make a noise. It'll be trouble if someone calls the cops,"
and forcefully pushed me into the river. It happened in an instant. Unlike in dramas, I didn't see the face of the person pushing me or my life flash before my eyes. I just fell into the river. In an instant, not understanding what had happened, I looked up from the river, desperately asking for help from Joe while angry, but he said,
"Better swim fast or you'll drown. Don't be mad just because you fell into the river. Maybe you need a little hardship, huh?"
And then he tried to leave. I pleaded,
"Please help me. I'll do anything you say from now on."
Even though I didn't mean it, I thought it was the only way to be saved. Still, Joe said,
"You're healed, right? Swim back home."
And laughed, then left without trying to help, drove away in his car. Desperately wanting to live, I managed to grab onto a floating log, struggling with the pain in my legs and my inability to move properly, let alone my poor swimming skills, teetering between life and death. If no one came to help. Just then,
"Are you okay? Hold on, I'm coming to help you."
a man hurried from the shore. A man with a large empty plastic bottle swam to me, gave it to me for buoyancy, and then pulled me to shore, saving me. After being urgently transported. "Thank you, really, thank you so much," I said to the man, crying from gratitude.
"No problem at all. My name is Brian. I was fishing a bit away and saw a woman being forcibly taken out of a car. I was shocked and sorry I couldn't reach you before you got wet,"
he replied. Despite everything happening so quickly, from being pulled out of the car to being pushed into the river, I was grateful for his help. "Not at all. You saved my life." I expressed my thanks. After sharing with Brian and the doctor about Joe's usual behavior at home and what happened this time, both were outraged and immediately reported it. The next day, to witness Joe's arrest, Brian and I went home together. I was still not fully healed, so I was in a wheelchair. The police were waiting for Joe as he returned home from work. Seeing me and Brian, Joe looked between us and mockingly said,
"Did you have an affair and get in trouble with the police?"
"Your life is over." Laughing. Confused by his absurd conclusion, the police said,
"What are you talking about? We're here to take care of you,"
and handcuffed Joe. Joe, yelling, said,
"What did I do? Who is this guy? Explain,"
trying to grab me even as the police restrained him. Astonished, I said,
"Did you forget what you did to me? Dragging me out of the car and pushing me into the river? That's a crime, isn't it?"
Looking straight into Joe's eyes.
"But you're alive, so I don't see why I'd be arrested,"
Joe retorted nonsensically. Being alive doesn't justify anything. Joe didn't apologize for anything he had done. Far from it, he insisted he was not at fault, and to me, he no longer seemed like a husband but something devoid of human compassion.
The act of throwing someone into the river, given the real possibility of death resulting from it, is considered attempted murder,
the police explained carefully. Joe had heard of fractures but never experienced one himself. Many around him had suffered fractures and seemed to live normally, so Joe perceived it as a minor injury.
"I thought fractures healed quickly, and given Isabella's resilience, I assumed she'd easily climb out of the river unharmed,"
Joe argued, claiming his arrest was an overreaction. He also assumed my absence from home was due to my reluctance to do housework, maintaining his innocence. Then, Brian, who had been silent till now.
"All I've heard is you justifying your actions. It seems you're not concerned about Isabella's injuries. From what I witnessed, your indifference is unbelievable,"
he spoke up. Joe scoffed.
"You claim to have seen the scene, but there was no one there, was there? Do you have proof you were present?"
To which Brian countered, showing Joe a video.
"There's plenty of evidence."
Though taken from a distance, it clearly captured Joe dropping me into the river.
"When I arrived, Isabella was nearly drowning, teetering on the edge of life and death. You wouldn't have seen, having left after dropping her. It's hard to tell from above, but the current was strong,"
Brian continued.
"From the bridge, it might have seemed deserted, but the shore had people like me fishing, or couples jogging, surprisingly many witnesses. They all provided evidence for Isabella."
Brian proudly showed Joe the videos. Joe's face visibly paled as if in a cartoon.
This was taken by another couple. As someone with a loved one, I find this unforgivable. They insisted you must pay for your actions.
Brian silenced Joe. Frustrated and unable to retort, Joe could only glare at us. Seeing him, I said, "Showing this in court will certainly demonstrate the malice in your actions." Finally conceding, I'm sorry." Joe apologized. He pleaded, "Please, I have a job. Spare me the arrest and the trial." But I realized his apology was only out of fear of his company finding out. Unforgiven, we proceeded to trial. Upon hearing of the trial, Joe protested.
"I apologized. What more do you want? I'll fight this in court. I won't let you have her way."
His outcry didn't deter me. I was determined to see the trial through. With decisive evidence in hand and Brian's support, I was able to calmly face Joe to the end. Joe insisted that fractures were minor injuries that everyone around him recovered from easily, attempting to depict me as lazy, but no one was swayed. I had been discharged from the hospital to continue rehabilitation at home, as explained by the doctor, not because I was fully healed. Joe's attempt to diagnose me without medical expertise only garnered sympathy for me from everyone present. The judge, after viewing the evidence I brought, handed down a swift prison sentence without probation to Joe, citing the maliciousness of his actions. Even after the verdict, Joe refused to give up.
"The judge and police are all deceived. Is she even really fractured? If so, her suffering seems like an act.
And
stop this nonsense and just obey me like before. What happened to you, Isabella?"
he ranted. To which I quietly responded, "The one who is wrong here is you." Joe's continued slander worsened the judge's impression, extending his sentence, as he inflicted more pain upon himself through his actions. Finally, everything ended, and I was free from Joe through divorce, feeling both exhausted and relieved. The more I put effort into my work, the more Joe used to get angry in the past. But now, I can focus entirely on what I want. It's as if Joe never existed. I concentrate on what's in front of me and steadily build my career. Fortunately, my workplace had no one who undermined others' character. And the depressive state Joe's attitude had induced in me gradually improved, allowing me to reclaim my former self. I also moved out of the cramped house I had lived in, enjoying a more elegant lifestyle, managing household chores and indulging in my interests as if reclaiming my lost time. Life is good now. Maybe marriage isn't for me for a while, I mused, noticing Brian looking at me sadly. The person I am today exists thanks to Brian, who saved me when I was drowning in the river. He was there for me, exhausted in both body and mind, after the trial ended and the divorce was finalized. He accompanied me during my hospital stay and my first trial, which is why I desperately wanted to express my gratitude by inviting him out for a meal on my treat today. Yet, considering Brian's busy daily schedule, I felt it wouldn't be right to invite him out too frequently, so I decided this would be a one-time gesture. Expecting the conversation to remain formal, I was surprised how well we got along, realizing hours had passed. I looked at the watch and realized, "Sorry for taking up your valuable time. Let's call it a day. I had fun. Thank you," I said, preparing to leave, but Brian asked, "Can I invite you out again sometime?" With a smile. Relieved he had enjoyed himself, we parted ways. Following Brian's invitation, we grew closer through multiple meetings, eventually dating and, surprisingly, marrying. Despite my initial apprehensions about a second marriage, Brian proved to be the ideal partner, supporting my career without jealousy or interference, enhancing my performance. Our relationship, built on mutual respect, allowed us to lead vibrant lives. Brian's hobby of fishing became a shared interest, helping me overcome my trauma of nearly drowning. Thanks to Brian's kindness, I've been able to live freely and happily.
You can't even show your grandparents' face, you unfilial person.
With that, my sister looked at me triumphantly. It's been 5 years since I got married, and while taking care of my father at my parents' home, I've been undergoing fertility treatments. My sister got married and was blessed with a child within 6 months. 2 months into her pregnancy, she returned to our parents' home for the birth. When I point out that my sister does nothing around the house, she coldly snaps back at me.
Since you're useless because you can't have children, at least be useful to me.
My name is Johanna, I'm 35 years old. I live with my husband Andrew and my sister Camilla, taking care of our father, Richard. Andrew and I got married 5 years ago, and we've been struggling to have children, currently undergoing fertility treatments. Camilla also got married and lives in a condominium with her husband, William, who is often away on business trips, leaving her alone at home a lot. Claiming it was for early birth preparation, she moved in with us, where Richard and my husband and I live, 2 months into her pregnancy. Our mother passed away early from illness, so Richard raised Camilla and me by himself. However, Camilla has always been troublesome, causing problems ever since she was a child. In elementary school, she would hit other kids, and Richard was often called to the school to apologize. We hoped she would calm down as she grew older, but that never happened. She kept causing problems until she graduated high school, constantly troubling Richard. Richard had to go around apologizing to people, paying for damages, and was always exhausted from cleaning up after Camilla. Feeling sorry for Richard, I helped around the house as much as I could, cooking and doing laundry, so that he could have a bit of rest. Putting ourselves last, Richard devoted himself to raising us. I wanted to ease Richard's burden, so I studied whenever I had the chance. My hard work paid off, and I was able to attend a prestigious university and land a job at a major company. Now, I work remotely while taking care of Richard. Camilla, who moved in with us a month ago, does not do any housework and doesn't care for Richard, despite the trouble she caused him. Instead, she says, "Hey, big sis, isn't today's dinner too plain?
I'm pregnant, so I need nutrition. Make a more luxurious dinner tonight. Oh, and polish my shoes before I go out."
She treats me like a housekeeper, ordering me around. My sister, having become pregnant before me, thinks she has the upper hand.
Why don't you take care of your own things for once?
I was stressed out by Camilla's inactivity. Lying on the living room sofa, she glared at me.
You can't even show your grandparents' face, you unfilial person.
She sneered.
What a thing to say!
I would have children if I could. But that's not possible for me. Filled with frustration, I looked down. Seeing my distress, she added insult to injury.
Since you're useless because you can't have children, at least be useful to me.
Camilla snapped coldly. Tears welled up, and I was left speechless, so I left the room. I went to my bedroom and cried into my pillow. Yet, I kept telling Camilla every day that it's better for her and the baby if she moved a bit, and to take care of herself. One day, perhaps in a bad mood.
Enough, you're so annoying. Can't you just leave the house? Just come here for Dad's care and the chores.
She blurted out something outrageous.
If you dislike me that much, why don't you go back home?
To which she replied,
Going back home would just increase my workload. What do you think I'm here for? You're the housekeeper, just listen to what I say and keep quiet.
Camilla said, mocking me. Realizing it was a waste of time, I started preparing for work. While I worked, Camilla lounged on the sofa, eating snacks and watching TV. I debated telling Andrew about the situation but didn't want to drag him into a sibling quarrel. Camilla puts on a good front in front of Andrew, so it probably looks like we're living harmoniously. While I was hanging laundry, "How long are you planning to stay here?" Camilla suddenly asked. "I have to take care of Dad. I can't just leave," I said while hanging the clothes.
"It's going to be a problem if you don't leave. The baby is coming soon. You need to free up your room for us."
My husband and I were using the bedroom that Richard used to occupy. This room is the largest in the house. "That's impossible." I refused, and she just said, "Okay," and backed off easily. The next day, while I was working, Camilla, usually lazing on the sofa, seemed to be up to something. Busy with work, I didn't pay much attention until I went to my room and was shocked. The long-running manga I had collected since childhood, and the accessories and clothes I bought as a reward for myself upon employment, were all gone. Instead, the floor was covered with baby items. I rushed down the stairs and confronted Camilla relaxing in the living room.
"Camilla, where did you put the stuff from my room?"
"Eh?"
"It was in the way, so I sold it. If you're not leaving, we need the space. Your room is going to be the baby's room. I cleaned it up for you, so you should be thankful," she said nonchalantly, showing no sign of remorse. "It's unacceptable to sell someone's belongings without permission. Bring them back now."
I'm usually calm, but I couldn't remain so this time. Each item was filled with memories and treasured by me.
"Why are you so angry?" "You always say to move if I can, so I did while I could. There's no money left, just give up,"
she said, disinterestedly shifting her gaze back to the TV. Among the items Camilla sold was the engagement ring Andrew had given me. I insisted she buy it back, but she claimed she had no money and went back to her room. I told Andrew about everything that had happened so far, including today's incident, and apologized for the engagement ring being sold. Andrew was shocked to hear the story but immediately went to buy back the ring, and thankfully, we were able to retrieve it. Since then, I started paying more attention to Camilla's actions. I noticed that Camilla goes out a lot for someone who is pregnant. She lazes around during the day but leaves in the evening and often returns late at night or in the morning. I hadn't worried about it before since Camilla has always been more active at night, but I wondered what she could be doing while pregnant. I discussed it with Richard and Andrew, and we decided to investigate her actions. One day, I secretly followed Camilla, who had dressed up and left the house. She walked confidently, as if she knew exactly where she was going, and entered a busy downtown area. She stopped in front of a hotel and waited for someone. A man arrived, and it was clear he wasn't William. I had suspected something, but seeing them enter the hotel arm in arm confirmed my fears. I immediately contacted William. When I told him about Camilla's affair, he was shocked, having thought she had come back home early for the birth, but he quickly hired a detective agency to investigate. William reported the investigation results to us while Camilla was out. The investigation confirmed Camilla's affair. Moreover, from conversations between Camilla and her lover, Johnny, it was revealed that the child Camilla was carrying was Johnny's. Hearing the report, Richard turned pale and, in tears, "William, my foolish daughter has done something terrible. She's ruined her life. I don't know how I can ever make amends." He apologized to William.
"Richard, please don't apologize. I'm angry at Camilla, not at you. We may be family, but we are different people. It's my fault for not seeing her true nature."
Camilla betraying such a man of character was beyond foolish. We agreed to gather on Saturday when Camilla would be home, and then we adjourned. Saturday. The sound of the front door opening echoed.
I'm sorry for intruding.
William appeared in the living room.
William, you didn't say you were coming today. What's up? The baby's gotten quite big, hasn't it?
Camilla, rubbing her belly, smiled and spoke to William, oblivious that he knew everything.
Camilla, is the child in your belly really mine?
William asked Camilla without changing his expression.
What are you saying? Are you accusing me of cheating?
Camilla angrily retorted to William's words.
Camilla, I know everything. The child is Johnny's, isn't it? I had a detective agency investigate, so lying is pointless. I can't continue a marriage with someone who cheats. Let's get a divorce.
William spoke calmly and matter-of-factly. Camilla, panicking, tried to pretend she knew nothing.
William, what are you talking about? The child in my belly is yours. We're not getting a divorce.
Camilla denied it, but William placed the photos from the detective agency of Johnny and her on the table.
Can you still say you haven't cheated after seeing these?
Camilla looked shocked at the photos, but claimed,
It's not what it looks like. He was just giving me advice. It's terrible you would doubt me.
There's no need for hotel meetings for advice, I retorted, frustrated by Camilla's refusal to admit her affair.
So, how do you explain this?
William played an audio recording obtained by the detective agency.
Camilla, your belly has gotten quite big.
Yes, it's because it's your child. It's going to be adorable.
He doesn't know it's my child, does he?
Don't worry, William is clueless.
I married him for his money anyway. I want to raise your child without any financial troubles, so it had to be someone wealthy.
William stopped the recording there.
Too bad I found out, he said.
Camilla's face turned pale. Upon hearing the audio for the first time, Richard, with his face flushed red and shaking with anger.
Camilla, do you not have a conscience? All you think about is using people. It's high time you learn some shame,
he exclaimed. Perhaps realizing there was no way out, she defiantly retorted.
It's my child, no matter who the father is. It will be Dad's first grandchild regardless, so what's the problem? I'm going to have this child and raise it here.
Unable to contain my anger at Camilla's defiant outburst.
Camilla, how much trouble do you have to cause Dad before you're satisfied? Do you have any idea how much you've made him suffer because of you?
I yelled louder than I ever have before. Camilla turned to me.
A useless person who can't even have children has no right to speak. Dad would be happier living with me, who can show him a grandchild's face, than with an unfilial person like you.
And she laughed triumphantly as if she had one.
What did you say? I exploded. Jealous because Dad pays more attention to me, right? Always playing the perfect student, but now you're the inferior one because you can't have children. The baby chose me, not you, so you should leave this house. What do you know, Camilla? How much do you think I've suffered because of you? Both of you, stop. Camilla, I don't care about the grandchild, just leave.
Richard intervened. Camilla looked stunned by Richard's demand.
Dad, why do I have to leave? It should be her. Camilla, I'm done cleaning up your messes. I can't deal with this anymore. I don't care about seeing the grandchild. Just leave within a week.
Camilla couldn't accept Richard's words. That's cruel. Dad, are we not family? And with that, she began to cry.
You only think about yourself, acting out of self-interest. You've belittled Johanna and now betrayed William. You might want my inheritance, but I've decided to leave most of it to Johanna, who has sincerely taken care of me and kept our home together.
Richard declared this in front of everyone. Soon after, William added,
Camilla, please sign here. I'll be filing for divorce immediately after this. And don't forget about the alimony.
Camilla, cornered by everyone, slammed the table.
Is it fun for all of you to gang up on me? What's wrong with loving someone I truly care about? I've always loved Johnny. You should be grateful that a dull man like you got to marry me and was about to have a family.
She yelled.
Is that all you have to say? Then sign quickly.
William remained calm throughout. He no longer seemed to regard Camilla as a fellow human. His look was akin to observing an animal.
If you divorce me, you'll never find another wife, William. Don't come regretting it later.
Camilla angrily signed the divorce papers and threw them at William. William filed the papers immediately, and they became strangers. The next day, just to be sure, a DNA test was conducted to confirm if the baby really was Johnny's. The test scientifically proved the baby wasn't William's, and when Richard told Camilla to leave,
"Why should I be the one to leave? Shouldn't the failure over there leave?"
Camilla lashed out. Having no place to go after being kicked out, Camilla went to Johnny's, only to run into his wife. A confrontation ensued, leading to Johnny's divorce. Camilla, playing the tragic heroine denied true love, happily remarried the man she truly loved, and gave birth to a healthy baby. Johnny, who had entered into a marriage of convenience due to his failing family business, lost his financial support and assets. Previously a nominal president at his wife's company, Johnny couldn't find work anywhere and resorted to part-time jobs to scrape by. Camilla and Johnny, living in a cheap apartment with shared toilets and no bath, struggled with living expenses due to alimony payments to Johnny's ex-wife and William. Constant financial stress led to frequent arguments, and despite wanting a divorce, neither could afford to leave, resulting in a loveless marriage. Where did their true love go? Camilla struggled daily with odd jobs, part-time work, childcare, and household chores. Unaccustomed to housework, the home was always a mess. Camilla, who had always lived lavishly on others' money, now wore old clothes and an apron, a stark contrast to her former stylish self. Despite their hardships, both put effort into parenting. I returned to a peaceful life, taking care of Richard. I occasionally keep in touch with William, who I worried might become distrustful of women. However, he reconnected with his first love at a reunion and is now in a serious relationship. The day William told me he had a girlfriend, I received another piece of joyful news. Our continued fertility treatments were successful, and we were expecting a child. Actually, twins. We shared the news with Richard, and now the three of us eagerly await the arrival of our babies.
The numbers don't add up. You've been cheating.
Ben's angry voice echoes in my ears. Despite having just sipped a café latte, I feel terribly ill. I'm 10 months pregnant, and instead of showing remorse for making me drink milk, an allergen for me, Ben accuses me of infidelity.
No, help me.
I lack the energy to deny his suspicion clearly. My hoarse whisper bursts in front of him and fades away swiftly.
Acting won't help you. I won't be fooled. It's not like your allergy is a big deal.
Convinced that I'm cheating, he, seeing me in agony, doesn't help but leaves the house, still doubting me. What should I do? It's all over. With the last of my strength, I try to call someone on my mobile phone. But my weak hands let the phone slip away. Please. Someone help me. My name is Emma. I'm a 33-year-old housewife, living with my husband Ben, a classmate. We met through a mutual friend 2 years ago. Both past 30, we were already considering marriage, so when we met through our friend, we were acutely aware of each other as potential life partners. Ben works for a trading company, with a satisfying salary and handsome looks. Excuse me for asking, but why haven't you married until now? I knew it was blunt, but out of genuine curiosity, I asked him right there. Actually, I had a fiancé until 6 months ago, but it was called off. I was looking for a new partner since then. He answered cheerfully. I nodded in understanding. Being jilted must have been hard. I hadn't experienced it, but I could understand the pain in his heart. After that, we had a lively conversation about trivial things, like our hobbies and how we spend our days off. We shared interests in visiting art galleries and watching movies, making me feel that if we dated and married, we'd spend enjoyable days together. We hit it off and parted ways, agreeing to contact each other in a week. I was amazed at how quickly things progressed, but dating him felt comfortable, allowing me to be myself without undue stress. Being with him, I knew I could be myself. Instinctively feeling this, I started making moves on him. It seemed like he reciprocated my feelings, and just a month after meeting, we started dating. It was a whirlwind romance, totally different from any relationship I'd had before. But I already knew he was a good man, handsome and with a great income, so honestly, I wanted to secure him as my future partner. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and a year after we started dating, we got married. He proposed during a dinner on a cruise ship on my birthday. I have a milk allergy, so he made sure that my courses were prepared with soy milk instead. I really appreciated these thoughtful gestures from him. He was my pride and joy. Naturally, I accepted the engagement ring and carefully placed it on my left ring finger. I had dreamt of this moment, but having it become reality made me wonder if it was all a dream. That's how happy I was. I'll cherish you for life, Emma. He said, his cheeks slightly flushed from the wine, and kissed my cheek. That night was the epitome of happiness, savoring the joy of marrying him. Soon after, we registered our marriage and moved into our own place. How about near your parents' place, Emma? It's close to my work too, and it'll be reassuring, right? Really? That's great, thank you. Knowing I was an only child, he suggested living near my parents, thinking they'd worry. With the possibility of raising children in the future, I was truly grateful, as I'd likely need my parents' help. My family, including relatives, all lived nearby. As a child, my cousin Henry used to play with me a lot. So, starting a new life near my parents was a dream come true. After moving in, I quickly realized something about Ben. He didn't do any housework at all. But as I became a full-time housewife, I thought I was okay with it. However, as time passed, I realized he wasn't just avoiding chores, he was also making a mess everywhere. No matter how much I cleaned, it would quickly become untidy again. I did bring it up with him once. Hey, can you try to keep the room a bit tidier? Like, at least put your dirty clothes in the laundry basket? I tried to say it as gently as I could. But he didn't like being told what to do. It's bothersome, I don't want to, he replied curtly. Sighing, I picked up his scattered clothes. Aside from his messiness, there wasn't much else to complain about. On his days off, he would take me out on dates. We went to see movies we liked or visited limited-time art exhibits. It was a fulfilling married life. However, things started to change when I found out I was pregnant. When my period was unusually late, I checked and got a positive result. I immediately went to the OBGYN and was told I was pregnant. I was overjoyed at the thought of having a child with him. Just knowing I had the person I loved's child inside me made the world seem brighter. When Ben got home that day, I couldn't wait to share the big news. Guess what? I'm pregnant, I announced, unable to hide my excitement. Really? Ben seemed taken aback. Yes, really.
I'm 2 months along. The baby will be here in 10 months, so we have some time, but it's so exciting. I noticed a cloud of confusion shadow his face. 2 months? Yes. He seemed to mull over something. What's wrong? Aren't you happy? Well, it's just that. Ben responded cryptically, leaving me hanging without any further explanation. Did he not want a child with me? We had casually discussed children before marriage, and he seemed eager to have as many as possible. So why wasn't he sharing my joy now? Despite feeling unsettled, the fact remained, I was pregnant. I tried to convince myself that he was just caught off guard. After all, it's often said that fatherhood takes time to sink in. It wouldn't be surprising if he needed time to adjust to the sudden news of pregnancy. But from that day on, he became noticeably distant. He offered no help with household chores, even as I struggled with morning sickness. I knew he wasn't keen on housework, but I had hoped he'd step up when I was in need. I'm sorry, but I'm feeling really sick today. I don't think I can cook, I told Ben before he left for work. What? His response was far from sympathetic. I've never cooked before, and you expect me to start now? Pregnancy isn't an illness. You're a stay-at-home wife, Emma. Your job is the household, sick or not. I go to work even when I'm not feeling well. He glared at me as if he was in the right. Sure, he went to work even when feeling under the weather, but everyone's condition is different. To me, barely able to get out of bed, his words felt harsh. But I really can't move. I pleaded with him. He snorted dismissively. Fine. I'll eat out today, he said, leaving the house. I never thought it would come to this. I sighed to myself. I had always believed that we would build a happy family together. But his attitude changed since my pregnancy was disheartening. Had I been so wrong about him? That night, he returned home drunk. I had barely eaten all day due to feeling nauseous. I hoped, maybe foolishly, that he might have brought something back for me to eat, but he came empty-handed. Given his recent behavior, I couldn't help but feel resigned to it. Was I just an afterthought to him? Could it be that he doesn't even want a child? That thought saddened me deeply. Even as morning sickness passed and I entered the stable period, his attitude didn't change. In fact, it felt like he became harsher as I got better. One of these days, my colleagues want to come over to our place, he announced one day after work. Colleagues? How many? 5. Might be more. I want you to cook for them. Don't serve anything subpar. I don't want them to think my wife can't cook. What? 5 is quite a lot. Can our place even accommodate that many? Plus, I don't think I can handle that much right now. Even though I was in a stable period, I didn't feel up to hosting and cooking for a large group. Besides cooking, there'd be a lot to manage. The thought of handling it all by myself was overwhelming. It'll be fine, you're in your stable period now. So, this weekend, expect them. And remember, don't embarrass me. He said this nonchalantly and whistled his way to the bathroom. I was filled with anxiety. True to his word, he brought 5 colleagues over that weekend. 4 men and 1 woman, an odd balance that made me wonder. But considering he worked in sales at a trading company, maybe female employees were few. Hi, I'm and looking forward to today. The only woman, and greeted cheerfully. With her long hair swept to the side and striking features, she was notably pretty. She looked to be in her late 20s, younger than me, and her elegance made me instantly nervous. Nice to meet you. My husband always speaks highly of you all. I can't offer much, but please make yourselves at home. Trying to act the part of a boss's wife, I ushered everyone to their seats. As I started preparing the meal in the kitchen, Ben and his 6 guests chatted about work and rumors. And seemed to be the life of the party, nodding and interjecting with sharp comments. I felt entirely out of place in that circle. Resolved to stay in the background, I continued my work quietly. When I served the meal, everyone seemed to enjoy it.
Is this cream stew made with soy milk? And asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. Yes, that's right. I'm allergic to milk, so I use soy milk for dishes that usually require it. Interesting. And seemed to accept my explanation and resumed eating. Come on, just because you're allergic to milk doesn't mean you should serve our guests with soy milk. Use real milk next time. Ben chimed in. Expecting such a remark, I couldn't help but sigh. I need to eat too, so it has to be soy milk. You could have made separate dishes. He retorted. But I can't taste it if I do that. Our colleagues looked on, shocked by our conversation. Sorry, everyone. She claims to be allergic to milk. It's probably just a preference. Ben scoffed. The colleagues seemed uncomfortable, not sure how to react. Soy milk is delicious too. Please, enjoy your meal while it's hot, I said, trying to keep the mood light. Onlyan seemed deep in thought, remaining silent. The dinner went by, leaving me exhausted. I hoped he might thank me, but he just went to bed without a word. Our communication had dwindled. And this, along with his dismissive remarks about my allergy, made me feel increasingly frustrated. Months passed, and I was now 10 months pregnant. He kept coming home late, and we barely talked. The absence of our previous joyful dates filled me with loneliness. As the baby's arrival neared, I longed to cherish our time together. But he never initiated any moments like that. Then one day, he entered the living room, carrying a large bag and a familiar cup. It was from a coffee chain we used to frequent during happier times. I'm going on a business trip for 3 days. I went for a walk this morning and stumbled upon this coffee shop, so I bought this. Soy latte, remember? Yes, it's been a while. It was unusual for him to go for a walk in the morning. Stumbling upon a coffee shop and buying soy lattes seemed out of character, considering his recent behavior. He waited with a smile for me to take the soy latte. Was this a change of heart? I felt a glimmer of hope that the kind Ben I knew was returning. I wanted to go for walks with him again. Maybe after the baby was settled. I eagerly took the soy latte and drank it. It tasted familiar at first, but something was off. Is this milk? By the time I realized, it was too late. The cup slipped from my grasp. Ben's face twisted into a satisfied smirk. Hard to breathe. My breathing became labored as I slumped to the ground. I've always had my doubts. Is the child in your belly really mine? He questioned. What? I was utterly shocked by his accusation, suggesting the baby might belong to someone else. When you said you were 2 months pregnant, it didn't add up. I couldn't recall any encounter from 2 months ago. But that's... I wanted to explain to him that he was misunderstanding something, but I couldn't find my breath to defend myself. The numbers don't add up. You've been cheating. His accusation resonated in my ears. Despite not having much of the cafe latte, I felt terribly ill. 10 months pregnant, and instead of showing remorse for making me drink milk, an allergen, he was accusing me of infidelity. No, it's not like that. Help me. I didn't have the energy to clearly deny his suspicion. My raspy voice burst in front of him and quickly faded away. Acting won't help. I'm not fooled. Allergies aren't that serious. Convinced I was cheating, he, instead of helping me in my agony, left the house, still doubting me. What should I do? It's all over. With the last of my strength, I tried to call someone on my mobile phone. But my weak hands let the phone slip away. Please. Someone help. Desperately crying out in my mind, my consciousness began to fade. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was the white walls and ceiling, and I realized I was in a hospital. I was saved. As I felt relieved, I noticed someone's face peering in from the edge of my vision. Emma! You're awake! Henry. It was Henry, my cousin who lived nearby. Emma, you called me, and when I answered, I heard nothing at first, so I thought it was a mistake. But then I heard labored breathing and realized something was wrong. I rushed to your house, the front door was open,
and I found you collapsed in the living room. It was a shock. I called an ambulance and had you taken to the hospital right away."
Henry earnestly explained what happened after I collapsed. I remembered calling him just before I collapsed. He had always been like a big brother to me, caring for me. I thought he would come if there was an emergency. But before I could ask for help, I dropped the phone. I was in awe of him for sensing the emergency and rushing to help.
"I'll call the doctor. Wait here,"
he said and left the room. After a while, he returned with the doctor. The doctor explained that I had an anaphylactic shock due to drinking milk, but somehow managed to save me and the baby. Hearing that just a few more minutes could have endangered the baby's life, or left me with lasting disabilities, sent chills down my spine. My being here, awake in the hospital, was all thanks to Henry.
"Henry, thank you, really. No need to thank me. But how did this happen?"
His confusion was understandable. It was unthinkable for me, allergic to milk, to drink it willingly. Well, actually, I told him everything about my marriage with Ben up to this point. Ben and I thought we were meant for each other and got married. We had similar hobbies and always enjoyed our dates. Life was happy after marriage, at least for a while. But as soon as I got pregnant, his attitude changed drastically. Looking back, I still can't pinpoint what went wrong. Henry, arms crossed, seemed to be pondering the reason too.
"Ben's behavior changed after you told him about the pregnancy, right?"
"Yes.
When I said I was 2 months pregnant, he thought the calculation was off. He convinced himself I cheated and did this as revenge, I guess."
Henry's face hardened as I replied.
"Revenge or not, this is too much. Feeding you milk when you're allergic."
What was he thinking? Anger was clearly visible in his eyes. I felt moved by his anger on my behalf.
"I can't believe it. If it weren't for you, Henry, neither the baby nor I would have made it."
Just thinking about what could have happened without his help sent shivers down my spine. Filled with a mix of relief and a desire for retribution against Ben, I asked,
"What should I do about Ben?"
Henry, seemingly pondering the same thing, asked me back.
"Of course, I can't just let this go. I need to see that he's punished."
As I responded,
"If that's the case,"
he began, "I have a plan." After hearing his plan to deal with Ben, I couldn't wait to confront him. The plan was to be executed upon my discharge from the hospital when I first saw Ben. I resolved to follow Henry's advice when I met Ben. But the plan had to be put into action sooner than I thought. 3 days into my hospital stay, I received a call from Ben. It happened while Henry was visiting me. I hesitated to pick up the phone, and the call ended. But Ben called again immediately.
"So persistent,"
I muttered, staring at the incessantly ringing phone. The phone stopped briefly, only to ring once more. As the cycle repeated, I looked at Henry, silently seeking advice.
"Let's execute the plan now, a bit earlier than expected."
"Understood," I replied. Nervously, I picked up the mobile phone, pressed the call button, turned on the speaker, and placed it on the table.
"Hello, Emma?" Finally, you answer.
"Seriously?"
"I returned from my business trip, and you were nowhere to be found. I've been searching all over for you. Running away from home, what's that about? Thanks to you, I haven't had dinner."
His angry voice filled the hospital room. If I had held the phone to my ear, it would have hurt from the loudness. Ben, showing no concern for me, immediately started yelling. He was the one who made me drink milk and sent me to the hospital. His complaint about not having dinner was ridiculous, considering he never cooks. If he can't cook, he should eat out, but he doesn't even do that. It's like dealing with a child. While listening to Ben's angry words, I exchanged a resolute nod with Henry.
"Excuse me, but who am I speaking to?"
I deliberately lowered my tone to confuse Ben.
What? What are you talking about?"
Ben sounded baffled on the other end. Henry and I exchanged a knowing look and smirked.
"I don't know who you are." The mobile phone screen says Ben, so are you perhaps my husband?
What? He sounded completely perplexed. It made sense. After repeatedly calling his wife, he finally got through, only to hear nonsensical words. I glanced at Henry again and smirked. Henry nodded in agreement. Then Henry took the mobile phone from me and began to speak to Ben.
Hello, Ben. My name is Henry. I heard Emma's voice on the phone and took over the call.
What? Henry? Who are you?
Are you the father of Emma's child? So you're the one she's been cheating with?
Ben hastily accused Henry in a stern tone.
Cheating? What are you talking about? I'm Emma's cousin. Actually, Emma is currently suffering from amnesia.
Amnesia? Yes, this was the plan Henry and I devised. I would pretend to have lost my memory to confuse Ben. The goal was to get Ben to admit that he was the one who gave me the milk. The plan was supposed to be executed when we met in person, but Ben's call accelerated things. No problem, though. It might even be more convenient over the phone since he can't see my face.
Don't you know? Emma collapsed from anaphylactic shock 3 days ago due to a cafe latte she drank.
What? Ben seemed clueless about such matters, tilting his head on the other end of the line.
She nearly died after ingesting milk, an allergen. The baby was almost affected too. Emma lost her memory due to the psychological shock. You were the one who gave her the drink, right?
Henry's tone was stern. Ben let out a small cry of disbelief.
No.
What do you mean no?
It was me who gave it to her, and told me to do it.
Ben's voice trembled. Hearing this shocking revelation, Henry and I exchanged glances. Then, from the other end of the phone, a woman's voice exclaimed,
"Wait a minute."
We were stunned. It was Anne. I remembered her well as one of Ben's colleagues who had visited our house before. She was the beautiful one. Was Ben cheating with Anne?
Why am I getting blamed? You were the one who made her drink it, weren't you? You said giving her the allergic milk would make her bedridden for days, so we could go on a trip without her noticing, right? Yeah, but you gave her too much.
Ben and Anne began arguing. From their conversation, it seemed Anne had known about my milk allergy and planned to make me slightly ill so they could travel without worries. Ben and Anne were clearly having an affair. After all his accusations of my supposed infidelity, Ben was the one cheating. I felt nauseated by his hypocrisy. I exchanged a look with Henry and took back the phone.
Thank you for your time. I've recorded everything you just said.
Hearing my voice, supposedly amnesiac, Ben and Anne gasped on the other end.
What? What do you mean?
Sorry, the amnesia was a lie.
It was a ruse to get you to admit you gave me the milk. Thanks to that, I also got your confession of cheating. I'll be claiming a substantial compensation.
I said it cheerfully, and Ben and Anne both shouted in disbelief. How foolish can they be? Henry and I were astounded by their lack of awareness of the severity of their actions.
That's terrible. You were cheating too, weren't you? Then the compensation should be split, right? No, it's your fault for cheating first. I thought of cheating with and because of you. So, no need for compensation, right?
Ben's triumphant tone was grossly misguided.
When did I say I cheated? It's obvious if you count the pregnancy weeks.
Ben was clearly mistaken. I set him straight.
Pregnancy weeks are counted from the end of the last menstrual period. Not knowing that and suspecting me of cheating, then deciding to cheat yourself, that's despicable.
I'm divorcing you.
Prepare for a hefty compensation.
I yelled with all my might and hung up forcefully. Then I blocked Ben's calls. Finally, peace returned. Henry, really, thank you.
No, I didn't want to see Emma sad. I'm glad you could set Ben straight.
We sighed in relief, facing each other. I was going to have a child without a father, but it's decidedly better than having a father like Ben. Later, Henry and I submitted the voice recorder data with Ben and Anne's confessions to the police. They were promptly arrested and are currently being interrogated. A colleague of Ben's, who visited us before, said it was clear even at their workplace that Ben and were together. One of the colleague, Mike, confessed, "I regret not speaking up sooner. But I understand it takes courage to expose a colleague's wrongdoing." I reassured Mike it was okay. Ben's previous engagement had been called off due to his sudden change in behavior. A revelation that made perfect sense. Additionally, it was discovered that Ben and had used company business trips as a cover for their personal vacations multiple times, leading to their dismissal for misusing company funds. After their release from prison, they'll be starting life from scratch, having lost their jobs. The compensation they owe me is substantial. They paid it off with loans, but I wonder what they plan to do next. Sometimes I think they might be better off in prison, given the gravity of their crimes. Taking my allergy lightly, poisoning me with milk, and their infidelity. I have no sympathy for them. I hope they deeply reflect on their actions while with the police. Meanwhile, I gave birth to a baby girl and am currently living at my parents' house, where they help me raise her. Henry often visits and helps with the baby, which I greatly appreciate. When she gets a bit older, how about we go out together? Henry suggested sincerely. Yes. I nodded with a smile. Perhaps there's a future where Henry and I end up together. These hopeful thoughts fill my mind.
Really, she should just hurry up and leave this world. She's such a nuisance.
We, the married couple, said about our son's wife whom we disliked. Ever since she started living with us, she kept making snide remarks. Day after day of accumulated stress. I wondered if we had to continue living with her verbal abuse and harassment. Then, one day, for some reason, she gifted me a luxury car worth $50,000.
"I got it serviced, so it's ready to drive, LOL," she said.
Having no interest in luxury cars, I decided to let our son use it. However, when our son returned home 5 hours later in the new car, he was furious at his wife. She was surprised and began to apologize, tears streaming down her face. I am Addison, 65 years old. I live with my husband Ivan, our son Jake, and his wife Betty. Ivan has been a construction worker for many years, and even after retiring, he still helps out occasionally. After graduating from college, Jake joined a top company and then incredibly started his own. It's a web-related company, but I don't know much about it. However, the business seems to be doing well as he often happily talks about his colleagues. Originally, Jake and Betty lived separately from us. But, concerned about us aging and living alone, he moved his company closer to our home. After becoming independent, they started living with us, but instead of a happy family, a major problem arose. Betty, our son's wife. She constantly found reasons to complain about me and Ivan.
"The bathroom is dirty. Ivan, don't use it, please."
"How dare you speak like that?"
"But it's really dirty. It's just unhygienic."
Ivan, having worked in construction, sweats due to the physical nature of his job. Even though he's over 65 and retired, there's a serious shortage of workers. So he helps out a bit. He often bathes first. But it always causes a conflict with Betty. Both Ivan and Betty are straightforward, so they never got along. Betty has been in a bad mood ever since she moved in with us. Born and raised in the city, she probably hated the idea of living a bit more rurally with us.
"What is this house? There are bugs."
Well, of course, there are bugs.
"Unbelievable. I never had bugs when I lived in a condo. This is the worst. Get them out."
Our house is a single-family home. Jake rebuilt it, so it's pretty nice, but somehow, spiders and other bugs get in. There seem to be other dissatisfactions, like the department store being far away.
"Addison, what is this meal? It's like something for the elderly. I can't eat this."
Is that so? I'm sorry.
Huh, this is really the worst. I'm ordering delivery. I don't need mine.
Betty said this and began fiddling with her smartphone, her knees shaking. Her harsh words made me shrink back. Betty ate pasta and hamburgers she ordered for delivery. Our meals were more vegetable-heavy, but even that seemed to irritate her. Also, she never did any housework.
I can't be bothered with chores. Addison, please take care of it.
All right. I always felt like a housekeeper in my own home, uncomfortable. The strong-willed Betty really didn't get along with Ivan. Ivan is also strong-willed and blunt, so they were always arguing.
Ivan, don't just sit on the sofa when you get home. Huh? Why do I have to listen to you? Because you've been working and sweating all day, right? It's dirty. Now I can't use the sofa. What did you say? Both of you, calm down.
It was always like this. However, Betty's attitude changed when Jake came home. She would be all smiles and charming when Jake was around. I'm home.
Jake, listen. Ivan was being mean to me again.
Again? Dad, don't be too harsh, okay? And Betty, Dad isn't a bad person, he's just blunt.
But Ivan's way of speaking is unacceptable. It's scary.
When Jake was home, Betty clung to him. We were so astounded by her quick change that we were speechless. Then, Betty's harassment escalated beyond verbal abuse. She rarely cooked, but one day she decided to make a meal. It was a weekday lunchtime, so only Betty and I were home. She seemed to be making pasta, warming up some ready-made meat sauce while looking at her smartphone. The moment I tasted the dish she served, I started coughing.
It's spicy. What is this? Haha, your face is so red. That's hilarious.
Betty laughed out loud. She put death sauce, hotter than Tabasco, into my portion. She laughed at me as I desperately drank water and coughed. Other harassments included setting the bath water too hot and deliberately dirtying the laundry. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to talk to Jake. Sorry to bother you after work. It's about Betty. Things have been really bad lately. Bad in what way? She purposely put death sauce in my lunch, made the bath too hot to enter. If there are things she's unhappy about, I'm willing to try and fix them, but could you talk to her? Really? Jake was surprised and called Betty right away. Are you harassing Mom?
No way. I would never do that. What did Addison say about me? That's terrible. But you put death sauce in my lunch the other day. And there's more. That's not true.
I just wanted to spice things up a bit and it went wrong. I just wanted to make a delicious pasta for Addison. I'm not good at housework. Mom, I'm sorry. Betty isn't really good at housework. It wasn't on purpose. I'm sorry. I'll stay away from housework since I'm causing trouble. She said in a voice filled with false regret. I wanted to scream out that it was all lies. But I was too scared to think about Jake believing Betty and leaving. Jake, our beloved and only son, who we raised so carefully. I didn't want to become estranged from him at this age. I had no choice but to stay silent. Betty's harassment only got worse.
Addison, isn't the meal ready yet? You're so slow.
I was just cleaning. Can you wait a bit? You're so clumsy. You could help out a little.
But you said I shouldn't do housework. I'm not good at it, so it's your job, Addison.
Oh, and since the weather is nice today, please wash our room's sheets and pillow covers. She laughed heartily. I was exhausted, used by Betty every day without rest. Ivan was worried, but I had given up and said nothing. Then, one day, something happened. Betty came to me with a pleased look.
Addison, as a thank you for always taking care of me, please accept this gift.
She handed me car keys.
This car cost $50,000. It's been serviced and is ready to drive.
The dealer had driven it over, and a luxury car was parked in front of the house. Why all of a sudden?
I thought you could use a new one since your car is old.
Indeed, my car is getting old, but
You're happy, right?
Thank you. Confused, I nodded at the pleased Betty. Satisfied with my reaction, Betty returned to her room. I didn't really need the luxury car. I decided to offer it to Jake and take his car, and talk to him that night. Betty gave me this car as a thank you, but I don't need a luxury car. You use it.
Really? Thank you. I'll try it out tomorrow.
Jake smiled happily. The next day, Jake went fishing in the new car. I was doing housework as usual, spending some quiet time with Ivan. Then Jake came home. But something was off, and he was slamming the door roughly. Ivan and I exchanged puzzled looks as an angry Jake entered the living room.
Mom, you got that car from Betty, right? Yes. It was suddenly delivered to our house yesterday. Is something wrong?
Did you touch it?
Of course not. It's a luxury car, so I thought it's best not to touch anything.
Is that so?
Betty!
After hearing my response, Jake called out loudly for Betty. Betty hurried down from her room on the second floor.
Jake, welcome back. What's up? Did you do something to the car you gifted Mom? What? What do you mean? I drove it today, and the engine oil was completely empty. What? You drove it?
I was shocked at Jake's words and covered my mouth with my hand. I was stunned to have given Jake a car with such a defect. Jake looked at Betty with a troubled expression.
It's like you wanted Mom to drive a car without oil. No way! I just wanted to give it as a thank you gift. Today, I planned to go see fishing and drove 2 hours to the spot. But the car made strange noises and even started to smell burnt, so I took it to the dealer, and they said there was no engine oil. Really? I can't believe there was a defect. Maybe the dealer forgot to put it in? I thought so too, but something strange happened. There was no warning light. Normally, when the engine oil runs out, a warning light should come on, but it didn't light up at all. What? I requested a proper service. That's a lie. What?
Betty's expression stiffened at Jake's words.
The person who repaired it happened to be the same person who serviced that car. He said it was strange to get a request to remove the oil and disable the warning light so that no one would notice. It was you, wasn't it? I don't know anything about it.
Betty had deliberately drained the engine oil to make me drive the car. The thought that the engine could fail or cause an accident was terrifying.
I never thought you would do such a thing. No, it's not true. Believe me.
It is true. Ivan, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. Everyone fell silent at Ivan's sudden intervention. Then, Ivan took something out from behind the living room plant. He showed Jake and the others what he removed from the plant. A camera? Yes. We've been troubled by her harassment for a long time. Thinking you wouldn't believe us, I consulted someone at work, and they suggested keeping evidence. A young guy at work, who's good with cameras and computers, secretly installed these in various places around the house. He set it up so we can view the data on a computer. Ivan then went to his room and brought back his computer. He wasn't usually a computer user, but he awkwardly operated it and played the camera footage. All the harassment and verbal abuse against me were recorded.
Addison didn't say anything, but it was clear she was being relentlessly worked and was visibly tired. I'm sorry, but if things don't change, we want you two to leave.
Jake clenched his fists tightly at Ivan's words.
It's not true. This is all a lie. What's a lie? You've been lying to me all this time, saying Mom and Dad harass you, are too strict. How could you do such things to someone's parents? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I won't do it again, okay? I can't live with someone who can casually do such terrible things to others. Let's get a divorce. Divorce? That's a problem. Do you know how much that car cost? I took out a loan and can't pay it back. So you married me for the money. That's not true.
I couldn't stand to look at Betty's flustered excuses. I always knew Betty was after the money. She must have been freely using Jake's credit card to shop. Everything she wore was branded. Jake seemed not to notice, maybe because he loved her, but I always thought she was that kind of person.
So how are you planning to pay back that loan? You going to work? Of course you'll work for it, right? Since you gave the car to Mom. If I pay for it, it becomes my gift. Well, I'll do the housework. I'll work and then you pay me. And I'll pay back the loan.
I was appalled at Betty, who seemed to think this was a brilliant idea.
So you plan to dump the work on Mom and just take the money? You never did any housework, always making Mom do it all. That's not true. I can do housework. Then go cook something right now. What?
Jake pointed to the kitchen. Betty's face turned pale and she broke out in cold sweat.
Let's see if your housework is worth paying for. The ingredients are all there.
I had gone to the grocery store that morning. So there should be enough of everything. Betty, thinking she couldn't refuse, trembled as she gripped the knife. She appeared to be trying to make omelette rice. Her awkwardly cut ingredients were unevenly sized. Food spilled from the frying pan as she cooked, and the area around the gas stove was a mess. And the eggs were all broken up. The last time she made pasta, she only warmed up canned sauce. It was clear to both me and Jake that she couldn't cook at all.
And you were going to ask for money for this? You underestimate the job. Do you know how hard I work to earn the money you spend so freely? And to think you'd harass my parents while living off my money. I know that. But I was stressed. I hate this countryside living. Let's go back to our condo in the city. So you took your frustration with country life out on Dad and Mom? Yes. I told Jake I didn't want to come here, but he wouldn't listen.
Honestly, it was hard to watch a grown woman over 30 whine like a child.
Please, let's just live together, the two of us.
Betty repeated her pleas without showing any sign of remorse, almost begging. Jake, coldly responding to Betty, who was looking up at him while holding his hand, said,
"Just get out, now." But I've learned my lesson. I'll work hard at housework from now on. Get out!
Jake shouted loudly, dragging Betty out of the house and throwing her out the front door.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm sorry.
Betty cried and banged on the door. Ignoring her, Jake began to throw all her belongings out of the window. Eventually, her apologies turned into quiet sobs. Ivan and I stood in shock, not expecting Jake, usually so calm, to be this angry. After throwing all of Betty's things out, Jake returned to the living room and deeply apologized to us. "I'm sorry I didn't realize sooner. I was blind. I thought living together would make things easier for Dad and Mom. But instead, I made things so much harder." "You finally woke up," Ivan said. "Yeah, I knew Betty was reckless with money, but I tolerated it since we weren't struggling financially. But I never thought her character was this bad. I almost lost Dad and Mom." Indeed, if there had been an accident with that car, there could have been serious injuries. The lack of a warning light isn't just a little prank. Thinking about it now sends chills down my spine. Addison had it the hardest. "If you're going to apologize, apologize to her." "Mom, I'm really sorry." "It's okay now. Thank you for believing in us." I was relieved that Jake finally prioritized us. Just continuing our relationship with the Jake we'd always cherished was enough. Ivan, now that Betty was gone, didn't seem to care much, saying, "We got caught by a strange woman," and casually started watching TV. Betty, having picked up her belongings, was nowhere to be seen. After that, Betty called almost every day.
"It's your fault. It's all your fault."
She would scream in a high-pitched voice until hanging up. When Ivan answered, she would just shout, but she seemed to cry and apologize when Jake picked up. The harassment wasn't just through phone calls. Garbage and dead rats started appearing at our front door.
What's all this?
Let's get evidence first, Ivan said. He took photos with his mobile phone and cleaned up the mess, putting the carcasses in a plastic bag. There's no way such bold harassment would go unnoticed. It seemed Jake and our neighbors had noticed too. A neighbor friend called, worried about a strange woman lurking around our house. After asking Ivan's construction company to install security cameras, we caught the entire act on video. Seeing this, Jake sighed. Then the next day, Jake went to the police and filed a report. Eventually, Betty was charged with multiple crimes, including threats and obstruction of business. The recorded phone calls and the garbage left at our front door served as evidence. She also caused trouble by showing up every day at Jake's company to apologize. Such a selfish person. Her selfishness led to more fines, increasing her debts. After that, she apparently sold her branded bags and clothes to scrape by. She got a job, but, inexperienced in the workforce, she couldn't keep it and ended up working at a nightclub to make ends meet. Even there, she couldn't compete with the younger crowd and wasn't earning much, living day to day in a very old apartment. This is what I heard from a neighbor. After she caused a scene, crying and screaming at our front door, the neighbors asked what happened, so I told them everything. It quickly spread around the neighborhood, turning into gossip. I thought she would move far away, but without money to move, she's stuck near our lower rent area, living in an apartment about a 10-minute walk away. Any sighting quickly becomes neighborhood gossip. The neighbors, even more talkative than me, seem to know more about Betty's life. Rumors about her are endless, drunk every night, constantly fighting with different men. Jake's company is doing well, and he's busy every day. Seemingly done with romance for now, he's reaping the rewards of his hard work.
How about going on a trip? He suggested. Really? That would be nice.
As an apology for all that happened. Let's go to a spa. We still live together, Jake, Ivan, and me. Life has been peaceful and comfortable since Betty left. Jake occasionally takes us out for meals and shopping, showing his filial piety. I'm proud of how kind he has become. Is there anything you want? Jake often asks. But I don't really want anything. I'm not interested in luxury goods, and while I'm proud of Jake for starting his company, I don't want to splurge with his money. More than anything, I'm happy just living peacefully as a family of 3. Of course, I'd be happy if Jake brought home a wonderful woman next time. I hope he finds someone special and builds a lovely family.